Today I'll talk about neuroticism. Neuroticism is a person's proclivity to experience negative emotions. People with a high level of neuroticism are more prone to anxiety, are more easily hurt, are more introspective, are more afraid of being discussed by others, are more easily offended by other people's words, and so on. I'm just simplifying. There are 6 aspects to neuroticism. In essence, people with high neuroticism are prone to experiencing negative emotions. I have a friend in Taiwan who is very close friends with one person. They have opened up to each other because they are close friends. Once, my friend asked his friend for help, and the request from my friend was forgotten. Request assistance in purchasing food. When he returned home, his friend seemed to forget, and on the same day, his friend received the sad news that one of his family members in the United States had died. If you think it's perfectly normal to forget our friend's request who left the food, think again. But, because of his high level of neuroticism, my friend was deeply hurt and immediately cut off communication. Then he realized that there is no one who truly cares and loves me. It's strange that one mistake can destroy a relationship that has been nurtured for a long time. Why? Because my friend is on the extreme high end of the neuroticism spectrum. It indicates that the person is prone to being disappointed, hurt, betrayed, ignored, and uncared for. On the other hand, some people have extremely low neuroticism. He is a fearless, brave person who never gets nervous, is always calm, and can think clearly even under stress. People with high neuroticism are stressed. Usually, he was unable to think clearly because he was nervous, because he was anxious. As well as those with trust issues, people who do not easily believe in others or who find it difficult to believe in others usually have a high level of neuroticism. Because he has a traumatic past experience, he finally can't trust others anymore. Just because he has been hurt by one person makes him never able to trust others again. When combined with other personality spectrums, such as agreeable people, if you have a high agreeableness, you are very considerate of other people's feelings, you are easily swayed, you do not want to hurt other people's feelings, and you have a high neuroticism. Then you will most likely prefer to harbor hurt feelings in friendship. You are easily hurt, but you are too agreeable to express your feelings with others. People with a high neuroticism and agreeableness. Typically, self-injury occurs. If a disagreeable person is someone who doesn't care about other people's feelings, he may be considered selfish. If the disagreeable is extremely disagreeable, he has no problem expressing negative sentences to others. If the person is extremely disagreeable but has high neuroticism, you can imagine how easily he becomes enraged when he is hurt by others. So, despite the fact that he was easily offended, he attacked. In contrast to people who are extremely agreeable. Furthermore, if there is an introvert-extrovert spectrum, you will find an even more intriguing combination. People with high agreeableness and high neuroticism, for example, are more likely to suffer from anxiety and depression than people who are not introverted and disagreeable. According to statistics, people with high levels of neuroticism are more likely to suffer from depression and anxiety disorders. People with high levels of neuroticism have close relationships. For difficulty in making friends, because the individual finds it difficult to compromise the behavior of his friends who he believes has harmed him, despite the fact that that person does not necessarily intend to harm him. The most important point I want to make is the issue of trauma. According to Bessel van der Kolk, author of the book, The Body Keeps the Score, which discusses the problem of trauma, trauma is not only psychological but also physiological. It is not only a psychological problem but also a physiological problem. In his book, he states that your body calculates the score, which means that every bad or extremely traumatic thing that happens to us, our bodies like to remember. If you know a victim of sexual harassment, the victim who was so traumatized that she believed she couldn't ever marry, even if it occurred many decades, or centuries ago. A rape victim will find it difficult for the rest of his life to accept a man's touch or even a touch. To see a male figure only, he can immediately be active for his fight or flight response, trembling his hands, immediately cold hands, his body stiffened. Because a traumatized person's body is always ready for danger. Sexual harassment, usually perpetrated by the opposite sex, is the source of trauma, which he will unconsciously generalize to others. You are more likely to feel hurt if you have a high level of neuroticism. Apart from trauma, I'd like to talk about people with high neuroticism because they are easily hurt, offended, and so on. He eventually decided not to be friends with anyone. Because he believes that friends will only harm us, other people will only disappoint us, and dating will only harm us. People with extremely high neuroticism eventually decided, enough, I don't want any friends. Because his previous experiences with being friends with a girlfriend always ended in disappointment, he would prefer not to be friends at all. People who believe they do not require friends eventually experience the consequences of not having friends and support systems. The first is isolation. If you haven't seen my previous video, you can see how bad the loneliness problem is. The following why people who are not friends will deteriorate, not only because they are lonely and lack social contact with others, but also because having friends is one of, if not the, only way for us to communicate with others. Humans desperately need to communicate. We straighten out our thoughts by speaking. When people who never speak try to speak, their thoughts are usually unclear, unstructured, and unintelligible to others. Why? It's natural because he never dissects his mind, he has no idea what makes him think or feel, we have no idea what makes us hurt or angry, and we have no idea what offends us. Because we don't have a mirror with which to brainstorm, I believe deep talk is healing. A friend is essential. It's crucial, and if you don't have any, don't be proud of it. Of course, none of this is entirely your fault, because some people have a neurotic personality while others do not. Is neuroticism always associated with negativity? Not. Consider yourself a woman with high neuroticism who has a husband with high openness to ideas, high consciousness, and very low neuroticism. He is not afraid to make high-risk business decisions. Imagine if you have a high neuroticism and frequently argue with your husband. You'll say, "Be careful, you're jeopardizing our entire fate." If it works, how does it work? Neuroticism causes us to think critically and to plan for the worst-case scenario. So neuroticism does not imply negativity, rather, it refers to our proclivity to experience negative emotions. However, in general, humans require a complementary partner. We must meet people who are highly neurotic, so that he can constantly remind us when we are on the verge of making a mistake. Finally, because you are a sensitive person, you must pay close attention when making friends. You must recognize that your heart is sensitive, that it is easily hurt, and that it is let down by other people. Even if others do not necessarily intend to harm you. So perhaps the only piece of advice I can give you is to stop taking things personally. Because what our friends or partners do is often impersonal or not intended to harm us. For my friends who have a high level of neuroticism, believe me, the world is not as perilous as you believe. Calm down, unwind, and breathe. Last but not least, those of you who do not have high neuroticism must recognize that not everyone is like you and that not everyone must have the courage and sense of relaxation and calmness that you do. Some of the people you will meet will have a different personality than you and will be much more sensitive than you, so please pay attention to them, show them understanding, attention, affection, and genuine praise. Because they are in desperate need of it. Remember, if you suspect a friend has an anxiety disorder or a depressive disorder that is worsening, please encourage them to seek professional help because they are predisposed to mental disorders, particularly anxiety and depression. Thank you, and I hope this video is useful to you.